It wants to come inside. The apartment complex was at the end of a badly maintained road, with nothing but miles of dead land and sand stretching out behind it. I found the apartment on some obscure website with no ratings. It wasn't what I usually go for, but the trip was so last minute, and all the hotels in the area had no vacancies whatsoever for the night, so I had no other choice. You see, my father had a heart attack last night, and was currently still in hospital. I flew 2 hours, rode a bus for twice that, and would have stayed the night at my father's place while he recovered, if it wasn't for his awful girlfriend, who hates me for reasons still unclear to me. So there I was, staying in a cramped 7th floor apartment with a single bedroom as wide as I am tall, which is about 5 foot 8 inches, or 168 centimeters. So that was fun. My father was fine. He woke up in the hospital and seemed no worse for wear, but they kept him in a hospital for an additional 24 hours to run tests and whatnot. After I visited him, I stopped by the bar restaurant across the street from the apartment complex and bought a painfully oily pizza, which I ate on the creaky couch in the living room as I tried to get a hold of literally any channel on the shitty TV, which looked like it hadn't been dusted since Bush was president. I washed the glass I drank juice from and hummed along to Killing Me Softly, which was playing on the only functional piece of technology I came across in the apartment, an ancient radio. The apartment wouldn't have been that bad if I had a good view. However, the only window in the apartment was in the bedroom, and it looked onto the inside of the building. The only things I could see were the rickety elevator, the stairs, and the other interior-facing windows in the complex. My flight back was 2 days later. I had booked the cheapest possible round trip, so I had plenty of time to kill. I did so by sitting in bed and working on my final statistics paper, which was due in a week. I wasn't too worried though, as my professor was always quite lenient with deadlines. And soon the concentrated reading drifted to empty staring at the cage elevator outside the window. I'd been staring at the elevator for almost an hour when I realized that in that entire time, it hadn't moved from my floor. I found that strange, since the site I booked the apartment on declared it was the last available vacancy for the next few nights, and so I assumed the complex would be full of people. And yet, it was so very still outside. Unnaturally so. No noise, no movement. I shrugged it off and tried to focus on my work once more, but my attention returned to the small window and the view beyond. Anyone else would have dismissed it as coincidence or something, but I just couldn't shake off the feeling that something was most definitely wrong. I got up and went to the bathroom. I splashed some water on my face, blamed the uneasiness on the exhaustion induced by my trip here, and toweled my skin dry. I returned to the bedroom and got back into bed. I was about to reach over to turn off the lamp on the floor next to the bed. No bedside table, of course, when I noticed the figure standing in front of the elevator. My unease was momentarily quelled. Hallelujah, another human being. But it soon returned when I realized that whoever it was not moving. Not as in waiting, standing still, as in completely motionless. No normal fidgeting or adjusting or consulting a phone while waiting for the elevator. The elevator. The elevator. The elevator was right there. It was still on my floor. Right there in front of the figure. Why wasn't whoever it was getting on it? I watched with growing anticipation as the figure remained unnervingly still. I considered waving or doing something to alert whoever it was that the elevator was right there, in case they hadn't realized, but I thought better of it and remained unmoving on the bed, just watching. I don't know how long I sat there watching the figure, but it must have been at least a few hours. In all that time, the figure didn't move, not even once. I didn't look away from it a single time either. It was then that my phone dinged, and in my concentrated haze, it took a moment for the sound to register. I blinked and reached for it, tearing my gaze away from the figure and gluing it to the screen. It was a text from my father. "Thanks for coming by today. Means a lot. Come over for lunch tomorrow." Smiley face. I smiled at that. I started typing out a response when I recalled the figure and jerked my head back up to check on it. An involuntary shiver ran down my spine. It was gone. The figure was gone. I scrambled off the bed and tiptoed over to the window. I looked out and stifled a scream as I realized the figure was now standing in front of the door to my apartment. Still eerily unmoving, still just as ambiguous. It looked vaguely human, but who could have stayed frozen that perfectly for such a prolonged period of time? I was not a believer in the occult, but the festering feeling of fear in my gut whispered innumerable possibilities of what the figure was, of what could happen. I could feel the fear unravel and its tendrils begin to caress my skin and wrap around my limbs, but I pressed my lips together and backed away slowly from the window. I sat back in bed and tucked my knees to my chest. My eyes stuck to the window despite the fact I could see neither the figure nor the front door from the angle at which I was sitting. It was okay. I was okay. I had my phone with good reception, and I could call the police immediately whenever I needed to. I had locked and deadbolted the doors so... This time the tremor that went through my body did not stop at my spine. The door. I hadn't locked it. I had come in with too many things in my arms to be able to lock the door. I had told myself to put the stuff down on the table as soon as I came in and go back to deadbolt the door. But now I was second guessing whether I had actually done so or not. I stood up on shaky legs and gripped my phone in my left hand. I began the seemingly endless trek down the hallway, painfully aware of the silence outside. My heart was thundering in my ears, making it difficult to hear anything else. It was amidst the loud racket of my erratic heartbeat that I was suddenly acutely aware of another sound. Scritch, scritch, scritch. Something was scratching at the front door. Scritch, scritch, scritch. It was becoming more insistent, accompanied by a gentle thumping sound. Scritch, scritch, thump. Scritch, scritch, thump. My heart kicked up its pace and adrenaline coursed through me. I ran into the living room and slammed my body against the door and slipped the deadbolt across as I fumbled with the lock with the hand that held my phone. My sudden burst of movement and noise seemed to infuriate whatever it was on the other side of the door, as there was an indignant whine accompanied by a series of thumps. I backed away from the secured door and hurried back to the bedroom where I shut the door and sat in the bed with my arms wrapped around my shins. I looked at my phone, clutched in my trembling hand, and I unlocked it and brought up the keypad in the phone app. My fingers barely stopped shaking enough to type the 3 digits and hit call. I brought the phone to my ear and listened intently. More thumps and scratches sounded from the direction of the front door and the window. and I tried desperately to tune them out. The call drops. I hold the phone out and try again. 911. Call. It drops again. Why? I have 3 bars. That's plenty enough to call with. I call again, and again, and again. Each time, I get nothing. And now a loud bang reverberates through the apartment and I flinch. I try calling my dad, but the same thing happens. I send him a text message that simply reads, "Dad," and I almost sob when it goes through. He responds a few moments later. "What?" I text back, my stiff fingers flying across the screen. "Need help. Someone at the door." I felt terrible worrying him while he was in hospital, but I had no other choice. He typed for a while. "Where are you? Why didn't you stay at my place?" I texted back, "Not important." I tensed as another loud bang sounded, a whimper following shortly afterwards. "Not important. Please call police." With that, I sent him my current location. I sat back in bed and tried to control my breathing. What the fuck was that outside? Why me? Why now? Thoughts flitted across my mind, almost too fast for me to grab and decipher. Right then, I heard a different sound. At first I couldn't tell what it was. I listened intently through the bangs and scratches, and when I finally understood the sound, I recoiled and felt a knot form in my chest. Whatever it was knew my name, and now it was repeating it over and over in a horrid, guttural voice that caused goosebumps to erupt all over my body. It has been 18 hours. I haven't moved from my bed unless I absolutely had to go to the bathroom. I am surrounded by the noise and I don't know what to do. My father kept texting me throughout, but I stopped checking my messages 16 hours ago, when he sent a single text that made my heart sink low into my chest. "Are you sure you sent me the right location? Police say there's nothing but a dead-end road with miles of desert beyond." All the while, the thing keeps repeating my name, unceasingly, relentlessly, as though begging me to open the door. This feeling of desperation is driving me mad. At this point, maybe I'll let it in after all. A huge thank you to Sticky-Racoon, who allowed me to narrate this story, a link to which you can find in the description below. Please do check it out and show it some love. Stay safe, sleep well.